have a quick quiz for you today. It's very short. It is one question and it's called Name That Ingredient. I have a list of research notes here that I'm going to share with you, and you tell me if you know what this is. It's in 75%, if not more, of all packaged foods. It can be disguised by over 60 different names. It's a major contributing factor to many, many health issues such as obesity, diabetes, cancer, and more. It promotes inflammation, it weakens your immune system, it disrupts your brain function, it is highly addictive, and it creates cravings that are very, very hard to resist. Have you guessed what it is? Can you guess what it is? Hi, I am Arlene Timber-Henry, and on this channel, I talk about healthy eating and healthy lifestyle changes, particularly as they relate to better nutrition for women over 40. So today, that aspect that I'm going to talk about is sugar. I believe you guessed it. And if I wanted to get healthier, I would eliminate sugar from my diet. When I say I actually mean you. Because for the most part, I have already eliminated sugar from my diet over the years, and I have to say it has been life-changing. I also have to say that when I say sugar, I mean specifically, and I want to be clear that I'm talking about added sugar and not the naturally occurring sugar that we get from fruits and vegetables. So those sugars that are added to our foods are just about in everything that we consume. And most of us, if we are honest and if we check, most of us are consuming way too many of those foods and drinks that contain a lot of added sugar. As a result, we have become addicted and we have been having a very hard time giving up our sugar cravings and our sugar addiction. It's not all your fault, though. So I want to give you a little bit of comfort, not too much. Don't get too comfortable, but it's not all your fault. And I'll tell you why. There's a combination of factors that have together created that need that we feel to have that sugar addiction going, feeding all the time. We talked about this in one of my groups with some of my people. A group of us were together a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about one of these factors. That first factor is nostalgia. A lot of what we are doing, eating in the sugar realm, in the sweetness, comes from the nostalgia that we have, that we feel for the foods that we grew up with, probably from childhood. If you remember, maybe as a child, my grandmother or mother, we talked about this some time ago, those of you who were with me. And that nostalgia is real, and we feel a sense of affinity and a sense of familiarity with those foods, like the cookies and the jams and the cakes and the pies and so forth that we remember from growing up. So that's one factor. The other factor is habit, just sheer habit. It's something that we always do. We reach for some kind of dessert after we have had a meal, or we go for a snack and the first thing that comes to mind or that comes to hand is something sweet. So that's a force of habit. And as we know, habits are built over time. We learn them, and habits are hard to break. So even if we know that this thing might not be the best for us, we still do it because it's almost a reflex. It's almost like we can't help ourselves. So that's number two. And the third factor is really, truly the chemical reaction, that chemical imbalance that has been created because of us having this sugar intake over such a long time. There is a disruption, as I mentioned earlier, in our brains that causes us to feel like we need this. So it becomes something that we can't almost help ourselves in doing. And the sugar that I'm talking about, this added sugar, it's not just in the cakes and the cookies and the pies and the other sweet pastry desserts or the other things that we associate with a lot of sugar. It's in a lot of common, everyday, innocuous products and ingredients that you might not even think of as having lots of sugar, added sugar. So I'm talking here about pasta sauce and bread, crackers, ketchup, barbecue sauce, salad dressing, the boxed or the bagged cold cereals, pretty much almost everything that we can think of when we see it in a packaged form has some form of sugar in it. And as a result, like we said, we begin to get addicted to this, and it's hard to give up. Granola bars, and I remember reading about the added sugar in foods that are labeled low fat, because you have to imagine that if you take an ingredient out, like fat, high fat, it might not taste as good and it might not sell as well. And so you have to add, as a manufacturer, as a producer of this food, you have to add something in to make the thing appealing again to the wider population. And so most of the time that is some form of sugar, and it might not even be in a form that we recognize. It might be labeled as some other type of ingredient that we don't even know that that's sugar. So it's hidden in there, and that's unfortunate. It's really sad. And what is even sadder is that for the amount of sugar that we are using, sugar itself has no nutrients. Sugar is empty. It has no calories. Oh my God. It has no proteins. It has no vitamins. It has no minerals. It has no nothing but calories. It is full of calories, and it is those calories that are hurting us in the long run because there's nothing else that our body can take in from the sugar. So it does a lot of harm. I have a true story to share with you. And this happened to me many years ago. My dad was still alive, and he came to live with us for about 6 to 8 weeks while he was undergoing some medical treatments that were available closer to where we live. So he was with us for that time. And while he was there, he was using one of those very popular brands of artificial sweeteners because he was diagnosed with diabetes years before, and so he had stopped using sugar. So he had this package of sweeteners there, and after he left, there were still a few of the packets remaining, and I decided to use them so that they wouldn't go to waste. So I started using them. Then as I was finished, when they were all gone, I said, well, if I had stopped using sugar for this period of time, why do I need to go back? So I did not go back to my regular sugar intake where I would have added maybe 2 teaspoons of sugar to my tea. I rarely drank coffee, but if I did, I needed to have sugar in my coffee. And juices that you make and you sweeten and, you drink. And so I said, no need to go back. I can do without. And this is the life-changing part that I talked about earlier. It's been a while, but I remember very clearly that once I did not go back to adding any more sugar to my tea, to my coffee, to my juice, to my other drinks, weight started to come off. Unplanned, unexpected, I started losing weight. Did not change anything else in my lifestyle. There was no other factor. I didn't exercise any more or any less. I didn't eat any differently. The only thing that had changed was the added sugar that I had been using that I was no longer using. And that was an eye opener. And since then, I have noticed, and I know this for a fact for myself, and this is why I'm talking about it with you today, that simply changing that one little thing made such a huge difference. And so that is something that I wanted to share with you this on this video. And the question now is, what can you do? What can you do to ensure that the levels of added sugar that you are getting are within acceptable levels, or that you can eliminate this once and for all for yourself, if this is something you are interested in doing? I'll share with you some of the strategies that I have used that have been very helpful for me. And you can tell me if you have tried them or if you're going back to trying them or starting for the first time. So the first one is to read the labels. This is something that you need to do for almost everything, but particularly looking for added sugar. And the labels need to say no added sugar. And if you can't find that, among the products that you are considering buying, look at least for the one or the ones that have the lowest percentage of added sugar. So if there are two things in your hand and you're weighing which one should I buy, one says 6% added sugar and one says 1 or 2% added sugar. Choose the one that has the least amount of added sugar to be on the safer side. So that's the first thing. I do that all the time. And then cut out sodas and drinks and juices that are full of added sugar. I believe we know this, that a can of soda has 9 to 10, maybe sometimes 11 teaspoons of sugar in just one can. And most people, when they're drinking, they're not having one can of soda. Sometimes per day, there are multiple cans of soda. Juices, the same thing. So make water your beverage of choice instead of the sodas and the juices, and that will help go a long way in eliminating some of the added sugar from your diet. Stop adding sugar to your coffee or your tea. And those of you who say, I don't use sugar, I use a sweetener. Remember what I said about the sweetener earlier? And also the process of making that artificial sweetener adds some chemical additives to the process that cannot be eliminated totally in your body. So as much as we would like to think that, especially the ones that are made from fruit, we're talking a fruit-based or a plant-based artificial sweetener. Remember that in order to get the plant to be that sweetener, it has to undergo a chemical process. And some of those pieces and little bits of the residue of that sweetener are not eliminated in our bodies. They remain and they're trapped in our liver or kidneys, or pancreas, and God knows where else. And so maybe not necessarily in the short term, but certainly in the long run, this might be a health problem in the making for us. So we can try to do without that, as well as the creamers. A lot of folks say, I don't use sugar, I just use a creamer. Check the label, read the label on your creamer, and you may be surprised to find that this creamer also has some form of sugar in it. So be careful. Just look at the label and make sure that you're getting an unsweetened version. Choose fruit or any type of fruit, any form of fruit for dessert instead of the usual cakes, cookies, ice cream, those kinds of things. Your fruit can be fresh, it can be frozen, it can be baked. You can make a fruit salad. Get in the habit of choosing a fruit or a combination of fruits for your dessert or as a treat instead of the usual types of sugary goodies. Again, beware of the low-fat foods or the light version of foods that have compensated for the sugar or for the fat by adding extra sugar. Be careful of that. And stop using desserts or treats like candy or cake as a reward for yourself. Oh, I've been good. I've done my 5-mile walk for the week, so I'm going to treat myself to a donut. Don't do that. And especially don't do that with children. You ask the children to do something and you say, well, if you do this, I'll give you some candy or you'll get cake, or you're not going to get this if you don't do that. So we're using the sweet treat, the dessert, the sugar-laden food as a reward. We need to stop doing that because it's just setting us up for that cycle again of the nostalgia associated with it, or the habit that we're building, or that chemical imbalance that I talked about earlier. So again, if I wanted you to improve your health, to get healthier, I do. I really, really do. I would say to you, I would ask you, please, I would beg you to consider eliminating sugar from your diet. Let me know in the comments if this is something you are open to doing, if you have tried it, if it has failed, and if you would love to try it again. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.